This is the Fujifilm X100VI and this is the Lumix L10. Today we're going to be testing them both out on location side by side for both photo and video. Both these cameras are small, everyday travel options, so today I'm sharing lots of side by side photo and video samples as well as my thoughts to help you decide which one is the right one for you. Starting with the Fujifilm X100VI. This is a crop frame camera featuring a 40 megapixel sensor and a fixed full frame equivalent 35mm f2 lens. Then we have the Lumix L10, which has a micro four thirds 20 megapixel sensor and a Leica full frame equivalent 24 to 75mm f1.7 to f2.8 zoom lens. I'm going to be doing a lot of switching today. I do have camera straps, so I'll use them in a minute. I'll be sharing all the photos I take unedited and at 100% crop so you can see the true detail from each camera, and afterwards the edited version, which I use my Lightroom presets for, which I'll leave linked down below for you. One of the first differences you'll notice is both these cameras have a different sensor size. So what does that mean? Typically, the bigger the sensor, the more light it gathers, which helps you achieve cleaner images in low light, more background blur, and overall better image quality. So here's a quick breakdown of the most common sensor sizes from smallest to largest. The smallest is a 1-inch type sensor, which you'll find in more point-and-shoot style cameras like the Canon G7X, the Sony RX100, and even cameras like the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 and 4. Next up in size is micro four thirds, which is what the Lumix L10 has. Something interesting about the L10 is that it has a multi-aspect ratio sensor that lets you switch between 4:3, 3:2, and 16:9 while keeping the same diagonal field of view. I've decided to shoot in 4:3 today as I really enjoy what that ratio looks like on this camera body. Next, we have an APS-C sensor, also known as crop frame, which is what the X100VI is using. Then you have full frame above that, and finally medium format. The other main difference you'll notice is the lens. The Fuji has a fixed prime lens, which means you can't optically zoom in or out compared to the Lumix, which has a zoom lens. But what's interesting is that the sensor size also affects the versatility of the lens you're using, specifically the Fuji's fixed lens. I want to show you the difference in focal lengths between both cameras. So with the Fujifilm, you've got a fixed 35mm full frame equivalent lens, and with the Lumix, you start off a bit wider at 24mm, and you also have optical zoom all the way up to 75mm. So I'll put all of those up side by side for you. Even though we have optical zoom on the L10, the Fujifilm does have 40 megapixel files, which means you can crop into them to get that same zoom look as well. You can also do that, it's a shortcut here on the lens, so you can shoot at 35mm, also 50mm and 70mm as well. But the 50 and 70 are cropping into the 40 megapixel files, so you are going to get smaller pictures. Sorry about the noise, but this is a cool spot to shoot in. So you are able to achieve that versatility with the Fujifilm thanks to its larger file sizes and digital zoom. One downside to this though is you're not able to get a smooth zoom transition this way. You are locked into jumping between predetermined focal lengths. Compare that to Lumix, where you have a true optical zoom, so you can stop anywhere at 33mm or 55mm or anywhere in between to get the exact compositions you want. I also really enjoy the zoom toggle on Lumix because it's very seamless and much easier to change up your focal length compared to using the zoom ring on the X100 lens, which I find is a little small and hard to move around. It kind of jolts the camera when you move your hand to use it. Got a good system. I shoot like this and then like this. It's a shame we have a huge cruise ship in the way, but this would have been such a nice shot. Something else to consider is the creativity behind the lenses. If you've been on my channel before, you would know I'm a big fan of shooting with prime lenses for my portrait photography, and 35mm is actually my favorite focal length. I find the limitations of a fixed lens makes you more creative with your compositions because it forces you to physically move around to get the shot, so you're more intentional with your photos. However, when it comes to travel photography, that's the only time I ever have zoom lenses in my kit, and the reason for that is versatility. When you're traveling, you can't always control the situations you run into, so having a zoom is incredibly handy for capturing great compositions when you don't have the luxury of time, like with street photography, for example. By the way, if you want to learn how to take photos with natural light the way I do, I have an online workshop with brand new, never seen before footage where I teach you everything I know about getting the best results with natural light, and no other lighting equipment is needed except your camera, and I'll leave a link down below for you. Something else to consider with these sensors is the actual file size. While Fuji's 40 megapixels gives you that wiggle room to crop your photos, those larger files can start to add up in storage space, so you might need to pay for extra cloud storage or find ways to back up and delete them. Compare that to the 20 megapixels on Lumix. It's enough resolution for everyday shooting and posting to social media, but the files are much lighter and easier to manage on your device. Now that you've seen quite a few comparison images, let's look into image quality and photo features. The shadows on these buildings are so pretty, and I love the color scheme as well. This is so nice. Both cameras are capable of taking great images, but if I had to pinpoint the differences, I would say the X100VI has stronger image quality than the L10. This will always depend on the circumstances you take the photos in. As you can see with some of these side-by-sides, sometimes you can't really see any differences at all. Other times, such as this portrait Dan took of me, you can see the Fuji has a sharper image and the out of focus area in the background is a bit smoother too. With autofocus, I find the L10 has much snappier and stickier autofocus compared to the X100. Human AF would turn on all the time with Lumix, even when someone was walking by in the distance. On Fuji, there would be people in the shot and it wouldn't recognize them at all unless they're close up in the frame. I have some consecutive portraits Dan took of me to show you what I mean. The Lumix just has solid autofocus in all the images compared to Fuji, which tends to miss more shots. Even when there is no movement in the frame, I found Fuji would randomly miss focus for no real reason, such as these 4 shots here, one of them is out. The same goes for video too. When we were filming during blue hour, the Fuji would lose focus on Dan and I randomly. I thought it was because I was turning around, but even when we were facing the camera, the focus would miss here and there for a moment. The L10 uses a leaf shutter and has a max shutter speed of 1/2000. If you need more, it then switches over to an electronic shutter with a max speed of 1/32,000. The X100VI also uses a leaf shutter and is able to mechanically shoot up to 1/4000th of a second. Then it moves to an electronic shutter which goes all the way up to 1/180,000. Let's talk colors, because one of the big things that draws so many people to using Fujifilm are its film simulations. Lumix have their own version of that called real-time LUT, which I find actually has some advantages over film sims. So both cameras have the ability to shoot in RAW plus JPEG, for example, where you have an unedited RAW if you ever want to access that in the future, and then the JPEG, which has a color edit applied to it at the time of shooting your images. While you can get beautiful results out of either camera, the Fujifilm simulations are more limited in options compared to Lumix colors. With Fujifilm, you have to choose between their predetermined list of film sims. You can customize them into recipes, but you never have complete control over the base color profile. Compare that to Lumix, where you can upload any custom light you find online or make yourself, and you can layer them on top of each other too. So you are able to get literally any kind of color style you want straight out of camera. So it all depends on what your style is when it comes to colors. Some people will be more than happy with the options Fuji have, and other people prefer to be more hands-on with their colors, which in this case, Lumix is a great option since they are so customizable. For today's video, I'm not using any film sims or real-time LUTs, as I want to show you what the files look like straight out of camera. The Fujifilm weighs 521 grams and the Lumix weighs 508 grams, so they are pretty similar. I found the Lumix to be more comfortable to hold and shoot with out on location because of the little bump it has for your hand grip. The Fuji has a bump as well, but it's not quite as prominent, and I felt like I had to use my pinky for a lot of support while I was out and about with the camera. In terms of physical size, they are both pretty much the same and there's no significant difference. The Lumix is a tiny bit thicker when you have them side by side like this, but it's not noticeable when you're out shooting with the cameras. The Fujifilm has a tilt screen and the Lumix has a flip screen. Which one is right for you will come down to personal preference. So some street photographers will prefer having a tilt screen to work with, and other people will prefer the flip screen for more versatility when it comes to shooting at different angles and for video and vlogging. Since neither camera is really a vlogging camera, I prefer the tilt screen personally, as it keeps the setup more compact and is quicker to use. Both cameras have a viewfinder. Fujifilm has a hybrid viewfinder where you can switch between an OLED EVF and a rangefinder style optical viewfinder. And the L10 has an OLED EVF. I found them both really nice to use. Next, we have buttons. The Lumix has a few extra buttons, which means more room to customize shortcuts. I also particularly appreciate the back wheel and the dedicated photo video S&Q switch. On Fujifilm, you have to press the AEL button and then use the joystick to scroll down to switch to video. I'm someone who shoots a lot of both, so I like having a quick button to switch between that. Fuji has very tactile dials such as the shutter speed and ISO dial, which some people really like for the shooting experience as it gives the camera a more retro and hands-on feel. Fuji also has a joystick, which is a must for a lot of people to move the focus point around without having to move away from the viewfinder while you're shooting. However, I do want to point out that you can use the back wheel on the L10 as a joystick to move your focus point around as well. It's not as fast as using a real joystick, but definitely still a good option for people who don't always want to have to use the touchscreen. That was a nice shot there with the lady going down with her luggage. I was like rushing to get it on both cameras, but we got there. Fuji has an inbuilt flash, which I know will be a bonus for a lot of people, and both cameras have a hot shoe. So if you do want to use a flash on the L10, you can add one on, and there are a lot of small flash options available now. With battery life, the L10 lasted a lot longer on location for me. I had to switch the X100VI battery 3 times while we were recording this video, whereas I was only using one battery for the L10. And these are new Fuji batteries I got earlier this year. The lower battery life is because the batteries are smaller, and it's also probably due to the X100 having IBIS and higher resolution files. Last but not least, I want to take a look at video. The X100VI can film in up to 6.2K 30p or 4K 60p with a small crop to the footage. The X100VI has a 4-stop internal ND filter, which is great if you want to travel as light as possible. While it is handy, I do find it does add a blue color cast to the footage, which can take some extra work in post to fix. The L10 can film up to 5.6K 60p 17:9 or 5.2K 30p 4:3 open gate without cropping. If you want to film in 4:3 60p, it uses pixel by pixel mode, which has a crop. Most importantly, 4K 30, 60 and 120p in 16:9 are all uncropped, which is amazing to see in this kind of camera. So both these cameras have very impressive video capabilities. As you can see from my footage, they both deliver beautiful results that are nice and sharp with plenty of detail. All this footage you're watching, I filmed in F-Log for Fuji and V-Log for Lumix, and I converted it using my custom Rec 709 conversion LUT, which I'll leave linked down below. So while both cameras are considered photo first, they do both have some very good video features. In terms of vlogging, the Fujifilm has a very zoomed in lens for that. At 35mm full frame equivalent, it's going to be a bit too cropped in to do any kind of vlogging like this. The Lumix, on the other hand, starts off at 24mm full frame equivalent, so you can vlog on this camera if you want to. It's got a very nice field of view where I'm very prominent in the frame and you can see plenty of the background as well. And as you can see, I'm just holding the camera with my hand. I don't have any sort of attachment. So let's test out IBIS next. The X100VI has mechanical IBIS, while the L10 has optical stabilization. When it comes to walking and talking, I have to say neither camera is strong enough. Even though the Fuji has real IBIS, both cameras shake quite a lot when there's movement happening in the shot. The Lumix gets away with it a little bit more when it comes to vlogging since it's such a wider shot, so the shaking is a little more forgiving. On the other hand, when walking with both cameras, the Fuji is undeniably more stable than the Lumix, which is very shaky. I'm always filming with both cameras at the same time to keep these comparisons as fair as possible. Filming at the same time is very comfortable as I don't need to press any buttons, but taking photos is a bit more difficult. But I got a good setup going on here. I've even got my pinky on the little zoom toggle on the L10. When it comes to filming B-roll, it is possible to get good shots out of both cameras with some technique. It's much easier to film these kinds of video shots with the Fujifilm though, thanks to its IBIS. You can see in a lot of examples there is some movement always happening on Lumix, but the Fuji is fairly stable. It's not to say the Lumix is bad. I actually don't mind a bit of natural movement in my shots, but you do need to work a little bit harder to get those nice video B-roll shots. As you can see from all these side-by-sides, both of these setups are capable of producing great photo and video out on location, and I hope seeing all my examples has helped you make the choice, so let me know which one you prefer in the comments.